An important thing when doing harmony on the guitar is being mindful of what we call voice leading. And basically, the idea is every chord that we're playing, we want to make sure that all the individual chord tones are not moving, jumping too wide of an interval to the tones of the next chord. It should be like very stepwise motion. So, chord tones are, for the most part, not moving more than like a half step or a whole step when they change to the next chord. And that's kind of a good quality of voice leading for guitarists. And, I think a lot of people could be surprised how good voice leading sometimes can make someone sound like they're doing a lot more than they actually are. A good example of that, the guitarist Martin Taylor, who's a phenomenal solo jazz guitarist. If you listen to the way he plays, the actual like harmonic content of what he's doing, it's not like very complex stuff. But if you look at the way he's connecting the chords together, it's very interesting. It's because the voice leading of his playing, the voice leading aspect of his playing is very intricate. The actual chords themselves that he's playing are not like super complex, but the way he's tying all the chords together is very impressive. So I think he's actually said himself in interviews before that he thinks he gets away with like giving off the impression that he's doing a lot more than he actually is. And the reason for that is because his voice leading is excellent, the way he connects all the chords together. And so voice leading is definitely something, as a guitarist, you definitely want to make sure you're keeping in mind, whether you're playing rhythm, you're accompanying someone, maybe you're playing solo. It's that voice leading that really makes a huge difference. So just as an example, if we were going through the changes of Days of Wine and Roses, let's start with the first chord in the key of F for Wine and Roses. It's 1 major, so let's start with this chord, so F major 7. And so in Days of Wine and Roses, the next chord is that E flat 7. So with this voicing, for someone who doesn't know a lot of chords, it might be tempting to just go, but that's not really good voice leading. So how can we make it work if we're going from this F major 7 chord? Well, let's just go string by string. So that bottom note, the root of the 1 chord, typically if we're going to a flat 7 dominant, in this case E flat 7 dominant, sharp 11, natural 13, naturally we'd want to move that F down to the E flat, want to move this note down to the root of the next chord. But on guitar, we can't go lower than that low E. So the next best option is going up a whole step to the 3rd of E flat. So that's going to be our note there. So what about the 5th of 1 major 7? Where can we move that 5th? Well, if we move it just up a half step, we have the flat 7 of that E flat 7 chord. So far we have now. What about the major 7 of the 1 major 7 chord? In this case, E. Where can we move that? Well, naturally, that'd be good to move down to the root of the E flat dominant chord. In a jazz context, we could also move it up to the 9th. That would be fine, but I want to move it down to the E flat. The reason being, we already have these notes moving up, so we have one note going down. We can get a little bit of contrary motion going. kind of like counterpoint in classical music. So that now we have these notes going up and this note going down. Then what about that third of the one major chord? What can we do with that? So again, don't forget, flat 7 dominant, kind of the harmony that's being implied there is kind of like this. So natural 9, sharp 11, natural 13. And if we made a scale out of that, it would be, so that would be Lydian dominant, which is the fourth mode of melodic minor. So I have another video about melodic minor substitution. So in this case, the melodic minor substitution would be B flat. But let's go back to the chord here. So that being said, what can we do with this A? Well, the A is actually the sharp 11 of the E flat dominant. So we can keep it right there. It's a common tone between the two chords. So we could also move it up to the fifth. That would be fine too. But I'm going to keep it on that A, especially because the melody stays on that A during that bars. So I'm going to keep it there. So now the next chord is 3 minor 7 flat 5, or 3 half diminished. Again, for someone who doesn't know a lot of chords, they might be tempted to just go to that voicing, or this one. But in our case, we're looking at the voice leading of the individual notes, so we don't need to think in terms of, which chord is this. We're going here. Now, how can we get to A minor 7 flat 5 from here? Well, notice three of these notes are already in the A minor 7 flat 5 chord. So this is the 7th. This is the diminished 5th. And this is the root. So we only have this note that we really need to change. So we could move this one down a half step. So the flat 7 of the E flat 7 dominant, you can move that down to the minor third of the 3 half diminished. So in this case, we're going, and this is literally just an inversion of A minor 7 flat 5. I have another video about exploring inversions of every chord that you do, but yeah, this is just an inversion, but the voice leading works out nicely in this case. So, and then the next chord is 6 dominant. So, but how can we make the voice leading work in this case? So from 3 half diminished, this particular voicing of 3 half diminished, how can we get to D7 from here? Well, that one note that's just dying to move down the half step, we could just change that note and that would be fine. And this note here, this is the flat 9 of D dominant. We could also move it down a half step. That would be fine too. That's actually just an inversion of D7. Or we could keep the flat 9 there. So that's kind of implying like a D7 flat 9 sound. But this is literally also a diminished chord. So, and as I'm sure many of you know, diminished chords are symmetrical. So you can explore the exact voicing all across the fretboard. But in any case, this is a diminished chord that's implying that 6 dominant flat 9 sound. But you could also, like I said, do D7 like this. Now another thing you could do, going back to the 3 minor 7 flat 5, and this is a little more out there, but it does work. You can move this note up a whole step to get that sharp 9 sound. And the reason that works is because you have that natural 3 of the D dominant kind of in the bass that's kind of stabilizing the sound of the chord, so that the sharp 9, when it's up higher, you can still tell it's a D dominant chord. Like this is the typical sharp 9 kind of chord you would learn, and this works because you have that third of the dominant chord lower than the sharp 9. So in this case, it works just fine. It sounds a little darker, but it does work. But let's just say we're gonna stick with this one for now. So far we have now what's the next chord we can do? I mean, there's a few options here. Naturally, from like a Baroque Bach kind of standpoint, we would want to resolve these bottom 2 notes like this. So let's try doing that. So we're gonna resolve these down like that. So the third goes up to the root of the 2 chord. The flat 7 of the dominant chord goes down a whole step to the flat 3rd of the 2 minor chord. So, and if we were doing this chord, the flat 9 of the dominant, we could move down a half step to the 5th of the 2 chord. So those are the bottom 3 notes. And what about that top note? So the 5th of the dominant chord is actually a common tone. It's also the 9th of the 2 minor chord. And that works just fine. Personally, I kind of want to hear more of maybe less of like those open triadic type sounds, especially with this type of tune. I'd prefer to hear something maybe more. If we could do something else with that flat 9, maybe move it up a half step, then we have G minor 6 and 9. So it kind of implies like a Dorian or melodic minor type sound. And that's fine. But I still want to close maybe the interval on the bottom range here. It's a little too close for me. Those bottom range notes, I want to spread out the interval a little more. So what can we do instead of this? So in a jazz context, like I said before, from a classical standpoint, that'd be very typical. But in a jazz context, or a popular music context as well, that's also fine. I mean, again, classical music, we don't like too much parallel movement, but in a jazz / popular music context, it's fine. So this goes up a half step, and this goes up a whole step. And that flat 9, I'm going to move up a half step to the 6th of the 2 minor chord. So that's what we have so far. And then the 9th, I'm going to move up a half step to the minor 3rd of that 2 minor chord. And yeah, so that's our chord progression so far. So we're going to go. Now on this tune, it kind of sits on the 2 minor for a little bit. So what can we do while we're just kind of sitting on this minor, on this, G minor 6 or G minor 7 chord? You could play it either way. So something I like to do when we're kind of sitting on a chord like that for a while is I'll just throw in the dominant again, then resolve back to G minor. And actually that order of chords that or voicings that I just played works just fine, because again, they're all stepwise. And you know, sometimes I like to throw in something like, which is just, you know, if we did a minor major 7 chord like that, we're just switching these. I'll do that sometimes just to add more tension. A guitarist who does that a lot is Lage Lund. He plays a lot of voicings like that, like that's something I kind of got from him. But anyways, if in this context we could go, now the next chord is that B flat minor 7 to E flat 7, or you could just go right to E flat 7. So if we're going from, I'm going to do the exact same thing, because technically the way I'm looking at that, I'm going from here to here. So the only notes that are changing are these two right here. So the 6th of that 2 minor chord and the 5th, the 6th is moving up to the 5th of that 4 minor chord, and the 5th is moving down to the flat 3rd of that 4 minor chord. So we actually have some contrary motion there, which is good. One note moving up, the other moving down. I'm going to do the exact same thing, since we're kind of sitting on that B flat minor chord for a little bit. Going to dominant, so that's like F dominant. And then here, we could do that. And that, you know, that would actually be better because we have stepwise motion there. But sometimes I like to throw in this chord. So technically, like I said, this is kind of violating our stepwise principle, because we're going from this note up a minor 3rd. The other notes are stepwise, but except for that one. So it's kind of like implying like a harmonic minor scale. And you know, you could add the 9th on the top too, just as kind of like a little touch, little cherry on top. So then we're going back to 1 major, so that, you know, this chord. So going from here to make the voice leading work, what we could do, we can move this note down to the 5th of the 1 chord, this note down to the 9th, this note, which is the root of that 4 minor chord, down to the 3rd of the 1 chord, and then the 5th of that 4 minor chord can just stay the same, because that's just the root of the 1 chord. So in this case, and this is actually just an inversion of like a major 9 chord, major triad with the 9th. It's just another inversion of that. So again, from 4 minor with the, you know, major 7 down to 1 major with a 9. So far we have, let's see. And we could keep going actually for quite some time, just going through the harmony of the Days of Winding Roses. But I think I'm going to end it here. I think, that pretty much illustrates the point I wanted to get across, how voice leading can be a really powerful way to kind of bring all the harmony of a song or tune together and make it all kind of this cohesive set of changes that you can work through on the guitar. So in kind of the same manner that we experimented with just moving notes, chord tones up or down a whole step or half step, or keeping them the same if they're a common tone, you could do this with any tune, any song. This is, like I said, a great way to just practice your voice leading. You could start with any chord too, like just any voicing of one major. Think about how you can make the voice leading work to the next chord. So like this one. Just start anywhere on the neck. Start with any voicing of one major and just work your way through the harmony, but focus on that stepwise motion of all the chord tones as you go through the changes of the tune. And I think that's pretty much it for today.